Hey everybody, Professor Snart checking in again. Okay, so we've arrived. We are here. We are finished up. Let's see our due dates here. We are finished up with Unit 6 and everything that's come before it, and we now enter into Units 7 and 8. They kind of get combined in our 8-week format, but it's essay number 1. So our first opportunity to really put everything together from shape of the essay and paragraph, to introducing quotations, doing research, putting a works cited together, all of that kind of stuff. So as I've pointed out before, we've kind of scaffolded our way towards this, and now it's the opportunity to put it all together. So one of the things to kind of be aware of is that throughout that scaffolding process, we've done quizzes, discussion boards, exercises, whatever, that were worth 10 points, 20 points, 30, whatever it happened to be, even 50. So in a 50-point exercise, I always encourage people to think in terms of the points. So you could get 40 out of 50, which you should think of as like 40 out of 50, not an 80% or a low B, right? Whereas you could get 45, just 5 points different, and that's all of a sudden 90% or an A, so a whole letter grade, if you do all those calculations. But it's really important not to do those calculations and think in terms of just those points. In other words, the difference between that B and the A, quote unquote, seems to be just the 5 points. And remember, our course is out of 1,000, so 5 out of 1,000. So it's always good to think in terms of points, because then you sort of get the relative importance of the exercise. So a brief quiz that we do that's open book is worth 10 points. It's really not that much of your grade. It's designed probably just to direct your attention to certain things in the reading, or to learn some concepts. It's not really like a test of your skills exactly. Some of the more major writing assignments that we've worked through are a little bit more heavily weighted, but again, not super significant in the whole 1,000-point scheme of things. So one of the things that you might have been able to do up to this point is sort of work a little bit at the last minute, or not invest as much time as maybe you could have, but still, because the margins between those like so-called letter grades are so narrow, you can still be getting a B or even an A, truthfully, even if you're not really doing your best work. I'm not grading as hard or for as many things, and again, the margin between those is so little, right? Just a couple of points sometimes that if you think in those letter grade terms, it can be a little bit, it can give you a skewed perception of the time you have to invest to get a certain grade, if that makes any sense. So that brings us, of course, to essay number 1. And I guess the short version of this is the grading is not, I wouldn't say it's much harder, but I am looking for not just very certain particular narrowly defined like one thing or two things, as in these previous scaffolding exercises, but here I'm looking for it all together. So if you feel like you've really been just doing things at the last minute, or kind of just, getting them done, and still getting a B or an A or whatever it happens to be, I would just caution you that that approach to the more heavily weighted essay 1, and certainly the final essay, is unlikely to produce the same results. So I think students are sometimes surprised when they do the first essay and all of a sudden that grade is significantly lower than what they've gotten on like a 10-point quiz, or even a 30-point paragraph or whatever. And again, I think it appears a lot lower just because the calculation works that way. And truthfully, there's just more points assigned to essay 1 because there's more things going on. So again, you really have to be conscious of managing your time effectively, because this is a more challenging exercise than what we've done before. But it's not meant to be opaque or cryptic or kind of like this magical thing that you now have to produce out of midair. It really is a culmination of what we've already looked at. And in many cases, it's the application of, or you providing the evidence that you can follow simple examples from our course. Like the Mla Citation is a good example of that. You're not having to memorize how to do these things. You're simply following the examples that are either in previous units or, in many cases, repeated, like in our citations link here. So are you citing things correctly? Are you introducing things in an effective way, like whether it's run as part of the sentence or whatever? Are you connecting quotation back to a general idea, which is what we would have covered in when you wrote the paragraph, for example, a sort of "this shows" statement, right? Are you beginning paragraphs within your essay with a clear topic idea rather than a fact or a quotation from the text, neither of which really works to introduce an idea? So it's all of those things, nothing that's secret or nothing that we haven't covered before. But if you're doing, right, if you get one thing wrong in a smaller exercise, it's 5 or 10 points, maybe not that big a deal. But you do that wrong in the essay, it's 5 or 10 points here, it's 5 or 10 points there, and all of a sudden that adds up. And again, it really has a significant impact on your grade. So having said all that, right, to scare you, hopefully, is also to now draw your attention to the fact that we have quite a bit longer, relatively speaking, in our abbreviated 8-week session here to move from the end of Unit 6, which is Thursday, November 5th, to our due date for Essay 1, which is Thursday, November 12th. So that's a whole week. Again, a whole week. I know it's not that long, but it's certainly longer than we've had to turn around in previous units. And given that our course is like divided in half in terms of the number of weeks, instead of 16, it's 8. It's almost like that's a 2-week period in which to be working, right? If that makes any sense. So again, there's time devoted, but not so you can just wait until Thursday, November 12th at 10 p.m. and then cobble something together. And that sort of got you by on these earlier units, but I can pretty much guarantee that that is not going to be an effective strategy for essay number 1. And unlike, even if you did sort of screw up a 20-point assignment, you get like a 10. That's pretty bad, but it's only 10 points that you've missed out of 1,000. If you're losing significant points here in essay number 1, that's like a lot out of the 1,000 in the course. So let's look at the assignment itself then. Basically, time management is what I'm saying. News to you? Probably not, right? I know. Okay. So we have a number of things to work through here. And again, don't skip to the essay assignment. You got to work through the stuff before it because there's ideas, there's concepts, there's examples that you need to apply or follow in the essay assignment itself. So the sample essays are not perfect by any means, but they are really useful for walking you through some of the important aspects that we're looking for in our essays. And these are really nicely set up. They actually play as they're kind of like interactive, I suppose. There's a little walkthrough about how they work here that you can just watch on your own. But you're not just reading the essays. There's the essay text that you'll see. There's also annotations. There's a little text annotation in addition, like it'll point to something that's really effective in an essay or maybe not so effective. And there's also some audio annotation, which is just me talking sort of through the essay again. So there's actually 3 of those that I want you to take a look at. And again, you'll see some strong things happening in essays, some maybe questionable things happening in essays. So it's really sometimes the best way to learn something isn't just the theoretical part of it, but especially for writing is just to see both positive and negative examples. So there's no test here to do, right? There's no like quiz, but it's certainly material that you'd want to work through before jumping into the actual writing of essay 1. And it's going to take some time, not something you can zip through right at the end and hope that that kind of covers it. And then, of course, really huge for us, like I've said before, the whole Mla Research Citation piece of it. Again, some tutorials in video form. Some of the screens might look a little different because, the databases change or certain things look a little bit different, but you'll get the idea. So I walk through using a database, building a works cited page, and again, this is why when you're doing it in your essay, if you're getting this wrong, that's just indicating to me that you simply haven't done this because it's here. All you've got to do is follow the examples. A couple reminders here that anything from our textbook we're going to treat as an article or chapter from an edited book, which is what the library Citing Sources page calls it. If you use Boys and Girls, which is the PDF from a previous example, or a previous unit, I should say, be sure you cite it correctly. I provided the basic info, but not in its exact format, so you want to check that. Again, handouts, examples, nothing mysterious here. You're just following the examples. And really important to get this right. If there's problems with this, this is like one of the key concepts or fundamental things that you have to be doing pretty much correctly throughout. I mean, a typo here and there is not a big deal. But if there are major problems with this, that's sort of a barrier to completing 1102 successfully. And then the assignment itself is not huge. It's not meant to be overwhelming. Here's a bunch of warnings about, using your time effectively in Lego format if you're interested. And then the assignment. Okay, so a 3 to 4 double-spaced paper. Not that long. In fact, you have to be careful to not let it balloon beyond that. This, of course, does not include the works cited page. So you're choosing from one of these 3 prompts here. The role of stereotypes, setting is used, and then maybe the theme of change or initiation in one work that we've read so far. I will let you know that it's hard to find secondary sources for Sherman Alexie's flight patterns. I note this right here. So it's not that you can't use that, but it presents some research challenges. So I might steer you away from that one. And then there's kind of like a reminder of all of the stuff, or many of the key points we've looked at before. One of the big ones being that your research material must be from a database, and it must be a direct discussion of the work that you're talking about, the primary text. So it can't be just about a general idea or related thing. That is just going to destroy your grade, because it's showing me that you haven't even read this, let alone kind of understood conceptual stuff that we've worked through previously in the course. Which is really kind of fundamentally what I remind people here, is that this is like, think of it in terms of you've taken a history class, you've gone to 4 weeks of classes, you've taken notes, or you've got handouts, or you've got, web resources, whatever it is. There's dates, there's people's names, there's important dates in history, whatever. And now you get a test. And the test is, let's say it's really simple. It's like a Scantron. So you're just picking A, B, C, D to fill in those, to show your professor that you've been in class, you took notes, you've read the material, and now you know, I don't know, the Battle of Waterloo or whatever it happens to be. But it's cut and dry. It's either right or wrong. This essay is your chance to show me pretty much the exact same thing. That you've been in class, right, in the virtual sense here. You've worked through the materials, done the readings, done the exercises up to this point, and can now apply them successfully. So it's not really a mysterious thing. There's very particular things I'm looking for, and that's kind of like what we've talked about or covered in the course so far. If you get them right, great, you get them right. If you get them wrong, though, just like in that Scantron test, they're kind of wrong. So that obviously has an effect on your grade. For some reason, sometimes people get to something like an essay and they lose sight of how it works as an assessment device. So they kind of go off the rails and they don't follow what we've learned in the course, and then they get a bad grade, and it's like, why didn't I get a good grade? And it's like, well, you didn't know the Battle of Waterloo or whatever the analogy would be. Okay, so this is a little bit longer announcement, partly to draw your attention to, again, time management, and also in addition to, the particulars of the assignment itself, to really think about like how this works as an assessment in our course. So what I'm looking for is not mysterious, it's what we've done, what we've covered so far. And be really conscious of much of what you are doing in your essay, especially as far as like research, citation, building your works cited goes, isn't mysterious. It's just following examples, whether through like the citation link or making sure that you're using the library's Citing Sources page, which will pull up really quickly here, as quickly as my slow computer will allow. Citing Sources, finally. Again, article chapter from an edited book for anything from our textbook. And then, of course, databases will simply be journal articles from a database. So you're not having to figure it out really on your own. It's all right here for you. And of course, if you have questions, concerns, anything, be in touch with me. and I will talk with everybody soon. Thanks for hanging in there through almost 15 minutes of this.